Thank you. So I think we should start with introductions, and I'll be first. So, ko Brian Hanna tōku ingoa, ko Rohi Tikuiti, ko Tupuna Rohi Ti Tai Tautaka Te Kireo. So great to be here as your independent chair, and look forward to getting to know you all as we work together on this very important kaupapa. So a bit about me. So I grew up in Northland, shifted to the King Country nearly 40 years ago, and for my sins got involved in politics in my Taupō district at a time where things were shall we say, pretty vulnerable. In 2004 was mayor there for 3 terms, and sort of was pretty heavily involved in a lot of the infrastructure work that we did, possibly under the Labour government Swiss scheme back in the early 2000s for small communities. We pretty much upgraded all our plants, took advantage of the government funding that was available at the time. So through my time there, I seem to have been asked to be involved in water spaces. I was LGNZ appointed co-chair for the first advisory group that met with the government after the Havelock North inquiry, to really which grew into the development of the new regulator Tamataarawai. Subsequent to that, I was independent chair for the Three Waters Working Group, appointed by the previous Labour government, and we all know those times, and also sat on the board, the establishment board and the first board of Tamataarawai. So when I saw this position advertised, I thought this sounded something I was really keen to be involved in, and so I put my name forward, and here I am. So looking forward to working with you all. And primarily I had 45 years farming career, and stepped out of that about 3 years ago. Still involved in farming, but not so much. My hands have got a bit soft. More in governance roles now, and free labour for my 2 adult children. One who lives in Northland and one who lives in Whitianga. So my son's in the marine industry in Whitianga, and my daughter and son-in-law, I was telling John earlier, have a drone business in Northland as well as orcharding. So I get called up to do that, which I really enjoy. So that's a bit about me, and have had a long affiliation with Taupō as a holiday maker here for many, many years, and obviously involved in King Country Rugby as a supporter and player many years ago, so know my way over here on a regular basis. So great to be here to be involved. So for my benefit, I'll ask around the room for people to introduce themselves to me, starting with Deputy Mayor over here.
Kia ora, Brian. Kevin Taylor, Deputy Mayor, 3rd term on council, and 2nd term as Deputy Mayor, with a new Mayor this time round. So good to be here, and good to have this committee up and running today. So thank you.
Kia ora, Brian. Steve Mananui, first triennium on council, so still figuring out the lay of the land, albeit seems to be moving as we're trying to figure it out. Other than being a passionate local, I've also dealt with moving a bit of water around the place in my day job. It's pretty decent volumes and what have you. So this, and as well as looking after some infrastructure. So this did catch my attention. But welcome. Nice to meet you.
Tēnā koutou. Tuatahi kia mōhio koutou, kei te ako tonu ahau e te reo. Ko Rachel Shepherd tōku ingoa, hei kaukoni hera ahau mō te rohi o Taupō. I just said I'm learning te reo, so I've taken up the challenge that Julie set me. I'm Rachel Cameron. And I'm a second-term councillor. I do have a day job. I manage and develop commercial property as well, so infrastructure is of high importance. And I'm very glad to be here. I was also part of the steering group that led to the implementation of the Water Services Delivery Plan. So I'm very happy to be here and to continue that good work. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm Councillor Duncan Campbell. I'm a second-term councillor. My day job is a civil engineer, traffic engineer actually. I haven't had much to do with water since leaving uni a long time ago. But one thing I'm interested in delving in further, water services as opposed to transport, which I'm more used to, is benefit cost analysis. I'm sort of interested that a lot of the water services stuff is not subject to that, and we're just sort of do as we're told, basically. And I think that some of it might not be necessary, and it's quite expensive, some of it. And I'm not convinced that all of the things we do are worthwhile, or the benefits outweigh the costs, put it that way. So anyway, that's what
Good afternoon. I'm Sandra Greenslade. I'm a second-term councillor. I was elected on the Turangi-Tongariro ward, and I have been very fortunate to work with Brian for the last 8 years on the Maru Trust across the King Country area. I suppose, like a lot of people, water is something that's very close to my heart. I've had a 30-year career as an international school teacher and lived in many places where the water that came out of the tap was not safe even to clean your teeth with, let alone drink. And there's a lot of something that New Zealanders don't perhaps appreciate, how fortunate we are in this country. But I do have to say, having had that experience, that I can say that the water in Turangi is the most beautiful water in the whole world.
Kia ora no tātou, ko ngā hui a fōmana hau, he uri tēnei no ngā tītu whare toa. First time on council, so you'll have to forgive me if I ask dumb questions, but I'm going to ask them anyway if I need to. Just looking forward to getting into all of the waters space, because that's one of my areas of passion down at the southern end of the lake.
Brian, I'm John Pennell. Just a formal welcome to Taupō. We're very pleased to have you here. This is my day job. I've been here 5 months, I think. And I probably should better tell you the days, hours and minutes, but it's been a fresh challenge which I'm enjoying. But welcome.
Kia ora tātou, Tony Hale, Toko Ingoa. I'm the Kaipakahare Matua Mahi Hanga Hapore Ratonga. That basically means I am the General Manager at Taupō District Council for Community Infrastructure and Services. And I'm very, very excited about our Water Services Committee. I think we've got a heap of work ahead of us, and I think we've got a great team around the table, as well as elected members, as well as our own internal team. And obviously, we know that there's lots of experts external to that in the consultancy area who we'll be relying on as well. But you're looking forward to it. And again, Brian, welcome. And yep.
Excellent, thank you. Are there apologies we need to note? No apologies. Okay, we'll move straight on. And before we ask the learned Mr. Tim Cadogan to speak to us, just wanted to list any conflict of interest to do with water services and the agenda. I'll list a couple, obviously my role previously with Tamata Arawai and the Three Waters reform process. I think it's important to have those registered. Are there any other potential conflicts of interest to do with water services anyone would like to register? If not, okay, we'll move on to the new presentation. And can I acknowledge the council for the water service delivery plan that you put to DIA? It's a probably kudos. You probably don't realise how it's a bit of a rarity. Councils going on their own and doing what presenting and getting approval. I'm sure it wasn't an easy process, but well done, and I really look forward to working with you in the space, because you will be we will be watched, not just by Taupo Arawai, but by DIA and Commerce Commission, to make sure we're meeting the expectations of your community. So with that, I'll invite Tim to join us from Taupo Arawai. Welcome, Tim.
Kia ora, Brian, and tēnā koutou councillors. Brian, I haven't been called learned in a very long time. In fact, I'm not sure if I ever have been, so I thank you for that. And I thank you for the invite to be with you all today. I also welcome Tammy Valla. Tammy is a Water Services Officer with Taumata Arawai, covering your area. Neil Shaw, our North Island manager, has just been called away. So Tammy is there to answer the difficult questions if they come along and I can't answer them. So with your permission, Chair Brian, I'll just get my screen to share and bring up the presentation that you may all have in front of you, but it's probably easier for me to share it from here, and it's just getting itself sorted, I hope. I had some trouble with this earlier today. Hopefully you're seeing, yes you are, I can actually see that there, so that's great. So the Water Services Authority, Taumata Arawai. Oh, a bit of my background first. Brian's indicated that we know each other. I'm 13 years an elected member and 8 years a mayor down in Central Otago, exiting that role in October 2024 to take this role up with Taumata Arawai. And as any mayor during that time, heavily involved in all aspects of water. So hence how I've wound up in here. So look, Taumata Arawai, the organisation formed as a consequence of the Havelock North Water debacle, disaster, whatever you want to call it, that I'm sure you're familiar with. 5,000 people made sick, 40 or 50 in hospital, and a hand to play in the death of a number of people. So about as bad as it can get for a water supply supplied by a council to its people. So that was 2016, and I have had people say to me in this job, oh, come on, Tim, it's 10 years ago, move on. So I'd like to start this presentation by updating people. Neil Shaw's just about to join us. He'll be pleased to be here, Kevin. I know you and Neil go back a wee way, so please line up, Kevin, a difficult question for Neil later in the presentation. That'll be great. Great to see you, Neil. So thanks, Tim. I'd like to update people on where we are now, so that this impression that, hey, that was Havelock North, it was an aberration, nothing to see here, can be dissuaded from people's view. This is a camping ground in Canterbury. Now, to emphasise firstly, this camping ground is on its own supply, so it's not a council supply, but nonetheless illustrates what can and does unfortunately go wrong. So back in September 2025, this camping ground got E. coli in its drinking water supply. E. coli is a bacteria. It's what's called an indicator species. The reason it's called that is that it indicates you've got something in your water, and what that something is basically fecal material. You've got poo in your drinking water, be that dairy, be it people, be it birds, whatever. Now, if you've got E. coli and that's come from fecal material, you're also going to have a very good chance that you've got a range of other bugs in the water. Now, E. coli comes in many shapes and forms, and generally speaking, it's not it's not so bad. But unfortunately, the one in this instance was a particularly nasty strain of E. coli. A school camp came through and a lot of kids got sick. 40 or so children got sick. Quite a number were hospitalised. One poor wee girl was in hospital, reported in the media. She was in hospital for 10 days and her ongoing kidney function was at question for a period of time. So this is what can happen. Taumata Arawai is here to regulate, to stop it happening. And just to give you the latest update, every week, suppliers across the country do testing at various regularity of intervals, and those tests come into the labs, and when they trigger problems, those problems get informed to us. So last week across the country we had 19 water supplies, 19 water supply notifications that there was fecal material, or E. coli is indicating fecal material in the water, and a bit of a record, not one that's an enviable one, but last week there were 8 notifications from 4 different councils. That is, in the time I've been doing this presentation, the highest I've seen to come from councils. So 4 different councils across the country, between them, received 8 notifications that there was fecal material of E. coli in their water. So what I really want, if there's one thing that your committee takes away from this presentation, is that We're not out of the woods. Most of our water is good most of the time across New Zealand, but not all of our water is good all of the time. And you will probably have people come to you and say, oh no, look, it's all good, there's no problem. There's still a problem. That's why we're here. So how do you make sure that you've got good drinking water? 101, getting the basics in place. Look, getting your source water protection right, that's a real fundamental. The better the water at the start of the process, the easier, the cheaper, the safer the water's going to be through it. And let's remind ourselves that Havelock North happened because of an infiltration of their source water. The water's filtration is very important. It can be used to treat. It also has a very important role in later treatment, including the disinfection. Disinfection comes in two forms: chlorination, been used for over 100 years, UV treatment used for 10 or 15 years. Neither of those work terribly well if the water's cloudy, so filtration has an important role to play in surface water takes as well. And then secure distribution, your pipe network, really, really important. It's pretty simple maths or physics, I suppose. If water can get out through leaks, then if the pressure drops, bugs can get in through leaks. You'll hear people from Taumata Arawai talk about multi-barrier protection. It's a pretty simple concept. Chlorine that I talked about, chlorination, will deal with bacteria like the E. coli I mentioned. Chlorine will deal with viruses such as norovirus. And if you've ever had norovirus, I guarantee you haven't lined up for a second opportunity. But what chlorine won't deal with is protozoa such as Cryptosporidium or Giardia. Again, very, very nasty bugs and illnesses that can come from that. Cryptosporidium was implicated in the Queenstown waterborne illness outbreak in 2024 or 3, a few years ago now. So it is active in our water supplies and it can cause problems. So the multi-barrier approach is taken is that, well, chlorine will take out some of these things and UV treatment will neutralize others. You need to have the barriers in place to make sure everything's knocked out. And included in that, I talked about the pipe network earlier on, is residual chlorination. So a little bit of chlorine added at the end of the process that travels through the whole network in case anything gets in through leaks, so that the last tap on your network is as safe as your first tap. Now, in my time as mayor and probably in your time as elected members, and certainly in my time here at Taumata Arawai, I've had people say to me, oh, your standards are too high. It's too tough. It's too expensive because your standards are too high. There's a really, really easy way to combat that. I can't see you well enough in the room to know if anybody's nodding their head because they're agreeing. But look, there's an easy way to combat it if anybody thinks that way, and that is this. Nobody thinks that it's acceptable to have a little bit of poo in the water, right? I think the general agreement across the world is that it's best to have none. Zero's the number. So if our standards are designed to stop the bacteria, the viruses, the protozoas that come with contamination from getting into the drinking water supply, if that's what they're for, then the standards can't be too high because we don't want any. We don't want any of those types of pathogens in our water supply. And it's a pretty easy answer to give to people when they say the standards are too high. They're not. They're stopping people from getting sick, and people can and do get sick from waterborne illnesses. Okay, what are we expecting from council supplies? We're expecting councils to be fully compliant with the rules or an acceptable solution. Some of the terminology, particularly acceptable solution, may be unfamiliar. Don't worry, I'll explain. Comply with the standards, respond promptly to safety risks with appropriate action. So getting the boil water notice out quickly if there's been a problem with the plant or if the water's got too turbid to be treated properly. Have really good risk management plans and demonstrate progress towards resilience. And actually with councils, we're looking for supplies to be resilient to disruptions by 2028. So we're not going to be seeing those boil water notices and so forth that happen, particularly long-term ones with quite surprising regularity right across the country. What can you expect from us? Okay, you can expect from us a proportionate response. What that means is, and I think the examples that I gave at the start of this are good, because if you look at a council supply like Havelock North, you're supplying water to thousands of people. If something goes wrong, thousands of people get sick. So we're tougher, we have more stringent requirements and expectations on councils than we do on, say, that camping ground where it was really bad that people got sick, but a lot less people got sick. Now, if you look at that triangle, generally speaking, councils are down in that voluntary space. Neil and Tammy and the rest of the crew have a relationship with your staff. They're not having to go in a heck of a lot. They're there to give feedback if issues emerge and so forth. But as you move up that triangle and things sort of start to fall to pieces a bit, we're not generally seeing councils there, but you've got quite a rural aspect to your area. We do see private supplies like that camping ground start to get into that area where the treatment's failing, they're not managing to do it right, things are starting to unravel. Now, the proportionate response with those people is that we're really here to help. I know that sounds odd. We're from Wellington and we're here to help, but we are, because we appreciate smaller schemes, the pressure's on them. We really want them to succeed. We're not going to hit them with a stick, not unless we really have to. And that's when we get up to that top of that triangle. And it's something that I do raise with councillors, because you're not going to see your schemes there, I wouldn't imagine, where we're having to enforce things. But you might see private schemes, as happened in Kaio earlier on, late last year, where the Kaio water supply, it was a private water supply in the far north, it failed. It was a boil water notice for over 10 years, and by the end of things, there wasn't even water coming out of the taps to boil in the little township. So we had to have, after conversations with the Far North District Council and the owner of that supply, we had to actually enforce the council taking it over. Now, for you folk around the table, you don't want that. You really don't, because suddenly you've got a supply, and generally a broken down one, on your books that you didn't have to contemplate dealing with first. So here's a tip on this one. You are all around that table. I know you are, because I used to be. You're all around that table because you're good community people. You know what's going on in your area. You know the people. You know what's happening, and you're going to hear things. If you hear of one of these private supplies, or any of these private supplies where the wheels are starting to fall off, there's the water's not coming out good, well, we should hear about that. But say, the person who's running it's getting a bit over it. There's often just one person or two people. They're often getting to sort of my vintage or worse. If you're hearing problems, let your staff know, let us know, can encourage those people to reach out and talk to us. Because as I say, we're not wanting to come in there with a big regulatory stick. We actually want to give them a hand, be that through Neil and Tammy and the team, or even through our community supplies team, who are this group of people here who will actually be able to reach out, get in touch with the scheme, say, hey, what's going on? What is it we can do to help? To be clear, we can't turn up with a bucket of cash, but we can turn up with perhaps the resources that will help them understand what's going wrong or ways of fixing it. Please, I encourage you, before it becomes our mutual problem, to get any schemes that you hear about that are having issues to reach out. In the space of those rural schemes or schemes that are private schemes, currently they'll either be registered with us because they've carried on from having a Ministry of Health registration, or if they're new or they never had a Ministry of Health registration, if they're supplying over 25 people in a domestic setting, they will need to be with us, registered with us by November 28 and be compliant by November 30. So our work with them is going to increase as that time frame comes closer, and some of those schemes need to get themselves registered and compliant. So it's a space we're moving into more, and you're going to hear feedback from your people, I'm sure, as time goes on with that. Look, the drinking water quality assurance rules, I'm only touching on these briefly. They are the rules for running a centralised water scheme. We did a consultation on them late last year, just to let people who have been following that know that we haven't actually completed the follow-up on that yet, if you've been waiting for a result. Now, acceptable solutions, I'm a country boy, I could talk on these all day. This is what is used often in small rural schemes to provide the treatment, not a centralised treatment where you treat the water and then it goes down a pipe network, but where the water goes down a pipe network and is treated at the individual household or business with what's called an endpoint treatment unit that has filtration and UV treatment. The important thing I'd love for you to take away from this, again, out in your community, is these were pretty tough up until September 25. They weren't very clear. They had high expectations, high costs. We made major changes to them in 2025. They now, particularly for households, have much lower treatment equipment cost, much clearer responsibilities, better guidance. If you have people in your area that have said, oh, we've looked at these and they're no blimmin' good, get them to have another look and get them to get in touch with us if they need to. Those of you who are councillors from last term, you'll be aware that we did a consultation on discharge to a discharge of wastewater. To quickly update on that, that is now in effect, been in effect since December last year, December the 19th. So what it is instead of having a ton of rules right across the country, your rules in Taupō are different to the rules that I had in Central Otago, because different regional councils had different rules. We've now got a set of standards for right across the country. So wherever you are, you're singing to the same song sheet. So when you come to reconsent your plants or consent a new wastewater plant, you as a council would make a decision in consultation with iwi and your communities as to whether the appropriate treatment is going to be to a water body or to land. If you choose that it's a water body, then you would look to these standards and go, right, what sort of water body is it? Is it open ocean? Well, it's not going to be open ocean for you guys, but is it a lake? Is it a river? Is it a stream? What sort of a water body is it? And what is the standard for the treatment that needs to be applied for that water body? You meet that standard, the regional council can't say, well, actually, we want you to lift the standard on it. There's small wastewater treatment plants that discharge to water have just different discharge requirements as well. And importantly, from a funding perspective, if you go through the process and you're given that consent, it's a 35-year consent. It can't be time limited. Similar situation if you make a decision as a council to move treatment to land or to have land-based treatment, reconsenting current land-based treatment if you have that, the limits are put in for the different types of land as opposed to the different types of water, because land comes in different types as well. And again, meet those limits, then job done, and again, a 35-year consent. We're almost there, folks. Get to the important bit, which is the question time. Other roles that Taumata Arawai has: emergency management. So more and more we're having an oversight and suppliers' response to incidences and emergencies. National engineering design standards, we're working on these. These are going to be really good. They're going to be a set of standards for the underground water infrastructure that a developer does in a subdivision. So instead, again, of having a whole lot of different rules, we're going to have one set, and hopefully everyone will abide by them, and we'll get some standardization, which always seems to come with lower costs. And we have a role in stormwater. Last slide. These reports are really important, particularly, I think, the two on the left for elected members. Drinking Water Regulation Report and Network Environmental Performance Report. They show you where you sit alongside the rest of the country, and they come out in the middle of every year, and the set that are going to come out at the middle of this year are going to be more league table based than they have been in the past. So you can ask the questions of your water organisation, or your staff rather, why are we sitting here when other councils are sitting there, or the water organisation sitting there? I've found them incredibly useful documents. The compliance monitoring and enforcement strategy is pretty much what I've been going on about for the last 15 or 16 minutes. Before we get to questions, Neil or Tammy, is there anything you guys would like to add?
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, kia ora koutou. I'm sorry I missed the start of the meeting. Yes, just confirming, I am Neil Shaw, the Water Services Manager for the North Island, based in Kirikiriroa, Hamilton. My team, we have two teams in the North Island, one based in Hamilton and one based in Palmerston North. We manage the operational side of the authority and deal directly with the council water supplies. Just want to acknowledge probably that Taupō have 16 registered supplies with us. So by far and away the leading council in terms of number of registered supplies. And also want to acknowledge the work that your Waters team and supported by councillors and the decisions you make, have upgraded a number of supplies to meet the multi-barrier requirements of the Water Services Act, and that the $55 million estimated spend is no mean feat to get to where you are today. We released last week a media report and highlighted the Taupō District Council as an example of the excellent work that's been done to ensure that there is safe water for everyone across your communities. So thanks for that, and yeah, we're continuing to work with your team, who are great to work with. Thanks, Tim.
Look, it's a pleasure and it's a great lead into question time. Just before we get to that though too, my apologies, Mayor John, I hadn't recognised you in the room, so kia ora, tēnā koe to you, great to have you there as well. Okay, Chair Brian, partai questions. Let's stop screen sharing and get into the really good stuff, where you find out what it is you want to know, and I throw all the difficult ones to Neil and Tammy.
Thanks, Tim, and thanks for your presentation. And yes, certainly good to see Taupō's already been acknowledged for good performance. Hey, and I get approached with my Wooders hat on previous roles, Tim. So if a council, and you read plenty across the board, if a council makes a deliberate decision not to meet the standards, what are the repercussions from the regulator?
Neil, I'm going to give you that one, because that's more in your lane than mine.
Sorry, just repeat that again.
Say a council decides that its community just can't afford to do something, they don't see the value. What are the repercussions of deliberately not meeting the standard? I know with my taumata arai hat on there is repercussions, but I think it's important, as given the role we're all sitting around this room doing, understanding what the repercussions are of not doing your job properly.
We would be first engaging with the water supplier to find out the reasoning behind that, and our approach would be generally an enforcement or compliance tool that we have available to us, and there are a number of those. We have direction notices, compliance orders, and then we move up to the top end of the triangle that Tim showed before, which would be prosecution as a last resort. But certainly our focus is on achieving compliance, and there may be other pathways. For example, we're currently working with your team on a cost-effective and compliant pathway for Motutere campground, where most of the time the population sits around 20 to 25, but for 3 to 4 weeks of the year that could be up to 600 or more. So that, yeah,
Thanks,
that's how we operate.
Appreciate that. Other question.
I think Duncan was first.
Yeah, I see. It's ready.
Thanks to the chair. Tim, Kevin Taylor here. Just you made a comment in your presentation around regulatory oversight in emergency management situations, and I guess we've had a few of those around the country in the last 12 months. Can you just unpack that a little bit for us so we understand what we could expect from Taumata Arawai in terms of your interventional support in that role?
Yeah, look, actually, I'd have to admit that I'm not strong in that space. We have a dedicated team to that. Neil, have you been involved in this side of it, or Tammy? We might have to come back to you on that one, Kevin.
Yes, we have. Generally in those situations, given the lead role is civil defence, and we provide a supporting role within that. There are certain powers and within our Act that give us powers to deal with things in emergency situations, and ignore things like the Resource Management Act and that sort of thing. But generally we'd have to declare a drinking water emergency. And so most of our work is about monitoring how councils are managing water supplies, what alternatives they have in place, and working along civil defence to ensure that people have access to safe drinking water.
Great, thanks for that. I suspect my colleague next to me, Councillor Mananui, who's the chair of our emergency service, or certainly the Waikato regional rep for Taupō. So I'll take it, Neil, you'd be the best point of contact to explore that further so we can get ahead of the game. Not that we're going to have any emergencies here, of course, but just so we're well positioned should that happen. Yeah.
Yes, we do have a principal advisor, emergency management, sitting in our office in Wellington, and she's well connected into NEMA and the Emergency Management Head Office in Wellington. So ideally I would involve her in any conversations that we have. But you know, you've got that big mountain sitting at the other end of the lake when anything could happen there. So.
Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I appreciate the first question of yours actually about repercussions, because that's kind of the angle of my question / comment here. Is that you also mentioned that, well, it was inferred that councils deciding not to follow the regulations weren't doing their job properly. But I suppose the counter to that might be that those councillors, elected members, do believe they're doing their job properly, and that's to keep rates down for their constituents, and which is kind of a reason why I'm personally disappointed why the government's rates capping regime does not include water services, because personally I think some more bottom line thinking should have been happening in this this aspect of council long ago, instead of just being regulation upon regulation. And for example, I have talked, I mean, I'm a civil engineer by trade, but not in water, I'm a transport guy, but I know some engineers around the place, and I've talked to one civil engineer who's been involved in water services in Singapore, which is a fairly first world country, and in his opinion, the water standards here are actually a bit over the top. And
can I just interrupt, Councillor Campbell? We're not here to debate whether regulations are in place. We're here because you have a water service delivery plan that's agreed to. So we're here to oversee the implementation of that. I don't think we're going to open up a whole debate on whether regulation is necessary or not. I don't think that's our role at all. But do you have a question of Tamatarawa staff?
Well, no, it's just really it's more a comment really that I also see our role as getting value for money for our ratepayers, and Tim did flick past that comment. Well, I thought it was fairly flippant about it's obvious that the water regulations are good because if people aren't getting sick, then we must be in the right. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, of course, so you didn't exactly say that, but I would just be, and I'll finish with this. I think really the question, actually, I do think it's a question relevant for this board here. Is the question is how much is it going to cost to stop how many people getting sick? And I think that's a question we should all be asking if we're spending a whole bunch of money.
Yeah. Okay, Tim.
Look, I'm happy to take that, and I could take that on in a number of ways. So I'm just trying to work out which one I'll do. There's costs and there's costs, right? So are we going to be a first world country? And I'll tell you what, I'll take it down to Mairohi. When the cryptosporidium outbreak happened in Queenstown, I asked this question: what would have been the cost if that cryptosporidium outbreak, as it could have, had killed a wealthy American tourist? What would have been the cost of that? What is the cost of the waterborne illness outbreak that happened in Havelock North, the ongoing cost? Because I've met people that are in this role since who are still having ongoing debilitating health issues from that waterborne illness outbreak. The cost is significant. What is the cost to a packing shed back at home again that has a waterborne outbreak that wipes out its packing crew or its picking crew during the harvest of the cherry season, and they can't get people to work because they're unwell? So there's many ways of looking at cost, and I'm sure we may have a different way of viewing it. A lot of what is being done here is playing catch up on decades, generations of council underinvestment. And in the drinking water space, it was back when councils could simply say, yeah, I know those are the regulations, but we can't afford it, so we're not going to do it. So there is a bow wave that's come through that's causing those costs. And as Chair Brian said, the regulations, they are what they are. I think you and I could have quite a conversation from differing perspectives about the value that having quality, acceptable, safe drinking water brings to our country. It doesn't come free though.
Thank you, Tim. Councillor Greenslade.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Tim. That's very interesting. And actually, I had a few questions written down here, and you've answered all of them in the course of your conversation. So that's good. One of the things I'd like to ask you about, and acknowledging, and it was one of the big surprises when I came on council, that we've got 16 registered supplies of water in this district, which I think was just about the highest in the country, isn't it? I mean, I don't think there's anyone who's got any more than that. Carrying on from that, so there's there are lots of private schemes, and you've got this arbitrary figure if you're supplying more than 25 people. Well, it is a very arbitrary thing, because if you're thinking of somebody, a water supply that's supplying maybe 4 or 5 properties, well, it might only be 5 people this week, but it's very easy to be 25 people next week. So I'd sort of challenge you a little bit on that and think, if you're supplying anybody outside of your own property, I would be thinking that you should be a registered scheme. Having said that, there are probably going to be people in the district who are maybe aware, but not perhaps totally aware of what they're heading into by November 28. What will be the actual cost for someone to sign up to a scheme from your point of view?
Yeah. Look, lots and lots of good questions in there. Thanks, Councillor. Firstly, the number 25 is arbitrary, but it's also risk-based. What is that number where back in the original Water Services Act 2021, a water supplier was one house that was feeding another house, as you suggest. So a farmer's house and the farm manager's house, if the farmer fed the farm manager's house, that was designated a water scheme that was going to have to register. That's now been pulled back to 25. Now, that number 25 is flexible to the extent that there is a period of time in the course of a year that it can be exceeded. It's not absolutely rigid. We appreciate that things wax and wane. There can be a bit of an influx at summertime if family are coming home, things like that. So there is the ability to wax and wane a bit there. It's a risk-benefit approach that's been taken by the government to change that from a 1+1 to 25. Now, in terms of the water suppliers that may currently be blissfully unaware that they're going to have to be registered and are going to have to comply, yep, that's on us with any help that we'd greatly take. Councils are providing us with their under Section 69 of, and I can't remember the title of the Act, but I remember the number. Neil can remind me. But under Section 69, currently councils are complying the knowledge that they have of private water schemes within their district, and that's going to be very valuable data. But of course, we don't know what we don't know. So we're just now, having been able to move ourselves a little bit onward from councils, as councils are starting to get compliant in the drinking water space, we're able to start to move into the small supplier space. So we're doing things like we've got an upcoming webinar with Horticulture New Zealand that's going to remain on their website for people to, oh gosh, is it me? Does it apply to me? Oh heck, it does. What do I have to do? Other Irrigation New Zealand, Fed Farmers, we're going to try to work through those groups. Rural and Provincial through LGNZ's been spoken to just 2 weeks ago. So we're trying to use that one-to-many approach to get the word out that people are going to have to comply. In terms of the cost, that's why we made those changes to the acceptable solutions. So prior to September last year, if you had, let's take the example that I'll be familiar with, an irrigation scheme that a lot of houses have latched onto, and are now supplying water. Well, if that scheme knows or should know that it's supplying more than 25 people, it's going to have to become compliant if it isn't already. How do they go about doing that? Well, that's where those acceptable solutions kick in. Now, there's 2 different standards, if you wish, of the endpoint treatment units that can be used. And it used to be that any endpoint treatment unit that was used in a water supply had to be what's called validated. It had to be validated to an international standard. In practice, this meant 2 things. One, it had a whole lot of bells and whistles. So if the UV lamp wasn't working properly, if some part of it wasn't activated properly, it would switch off, or it would have an audible alarm or some other mechanism like that. Those kits, you struggle to buy one for $10,000. So for households to look at having to put a $10,000 bit of kit in was terrifying, obviously. What we've done is we've actually changed it to say, okay, look, if you are just providing drinking water to yourself and your family and not members of the public, You don't need those bells and whistles. We're going to put some adult responsibility on you to change your UV lamp every year, to change your filters every 3 months or as you need to. And because of that, the cost of the kit has dramatically dropped. In fact, we've got a small unit here that was demonstrated to mayors a couple of weeks ago. It cost $1,200. That's not fitted. But you can see the order of difference that's come in. So, look, what's it going to cost? A lot of factors come into play. If the surface water is really prone to turbidity, that makes it a lot harder on these units. You're probably going to be looking at settling tanks, things like that. But if you're using a rainwater tank or a deep bore or something like that, you're probably not going to be suffering from that. So you might be fitted, I don't know, I'll throw out a number of a couple of $1,000s a household. So it depends case by case. But we've brought the costs down as much as we can. That's a long explanation. I told you, if you get me started on acceptable solutions as a country boy, you might regret it.
That's a perfect explanation, thank you, and that's exactly the sort of information that I needed. Thank you.
Yeah.
I tell you what,
Can I step in, Tim?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
So thanks. As Tim pointed out, it's the Local Government Water Services Act 2025. So everything that related to water services that previously in the Local Government Act has been moved across to its own little act. And Section 69 is the community supply assessment that councils are required to undertake every 3 years. Your team have started the process. They've reached out to us for information that we may have on community supplies in your area. There is one big registered privately run supply, the Mokai supply, run by the Tuarau Trust Board. There are other supplies we're aware of, like Mapara Rise, Muir's Reef at Kinloch is another one. So those will all be form part of the assessment your team will do. And that assessment, once it's complete by 1 July this year, will need to be published on your website, and a copy of that gets shared with us as well. And then we've got a piece of work kicking off where we're going to reach out to those unregistered suppliers through the various groups that Tim mentioned before, with information and guidance on how to meet compliance, and acceptable solutions obviously is the main focus of our compliance pathway with the less cost.
Thanks, Neil.
Cool. Any, Councillor Foreman.
I just wanted to check, I guess, for those other smaller providers, how many of those in our area, possibly marae or Taupo-Kaingaroa, knowing that those solutions, if you're looking at marae, are possibly quite expensive, and if they are able to deal with the arsenic as well.
Okay.
Since we know that's an issue.
The arsenic's an easy one. The answer's no for those units. They're not built for it. There will be systems that can, but the ones that we've been talking about, they don't. And in terms of the cost for, Taupo-Kaingaroa or marae that are going to be serving the public, yeah, they are in that more expensive realm of endpoint treatment units. There was a program through the DIA that's only just finished that was actually going out and through a company called Philtech, putting those supplies into marae, and had a backup, maintenance schedule and so forth. A very, very successful campaign that hopefully those marae that weren't able to get involved in it will pick up from through their own networks, that this is coming. It would be great if another round of that came forward, but that's not for me to say, and I probably shouldn't have said it, but anyway.
So currently then there's no solutions for those types of situations in and around Taupō?
Well, with the arsenic, the technology to remove arsenics is pretty difficult, isn't it, Neil? It's not something that I don't think can be done it's reverse osmosis or something.
Yeah, there are alternative options such as reverse osmosis, and you can get almost get under bench reverse osmosis units. And there's also settling tanks and dilution with another water source that doesn't contain arsenic, which are some of the things we're working through with Mototere Campground. The arsenic levels, So the MAV for arsenic is 0.01, and it's what they call a long-term MAV, which means that it's exposure over your lifetime. And the levels that we see in the sampling done by the council is between 1,000th and 3,000th over the MAV, so not very much over. So it wouldn't take a lot to dilute or remove that amount to get it under the acceptable value for the drinking water standards. So in terms of Marae and Taupo-Kaingaroa, we had quite a larger team within our organisation who were focused on community supplies. That team shrunk, but some of the members who were previous on our team are from the Taupō region. In fact, 2 of them live in Turangi and have been heavily involved in the Tūwhare Toa Trust Board, Lauren Fletcher and Paris Gray. And so they've got some great knowledge that they can share with those your local maraes and communities.
Thanks, Neil. And it's certainly something, if we need more information, I'm sure we'll be talking to Tony and his team around some of the options around that. Conscious of time, are there any other questions of the regulator?
Through the chair, I just actually wanted to thank Neil and his team on behalf of our team. We work very closely together, a good working relationship, and certainly always striving for transparency. And we don't want incidents, so if we don't call you too regularly, don't take it personally. But yeah, appreciate working together.
Thanks, Tony.
But it's good to know, Tim, that you're here to help. So we'll be keeping in contact with you throughout the time of this committee. So thank you for your presentation and your time today.
It's a great pleasure. I hope it's been helpful, and wish you all the well in this committee and also in the council in general as you move into even more interesting times than the times you and I had as mayors, Brian. It's an ever-changing landscape, isn't it?
Certainly is. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
And thanks, Neil and Tammy, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.
So we have a recommendation up there. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to receiving that. Moved Councillor Greenslade and seconded Councillor Foreman. All those in favour? Against, carried. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the election of Deputy Chairperson. I gather this has gone through the full council. So, Tony, did you want to speak to it?
Oh yeah, for the chair, yeah, certainly. We had a meeting on the 25th of November where it was determined who deputies would be, and that was recommended that Councillor Kevin Taylor be the proposed chairperson there. So I am recommending that we go with System B in the recommendation. So certainly happy to.
Okay, so there's 2 recommendations there. The first one to confirm System B, and the second is to elect Councillor Kevin Taylor as the Deputy Chairperson of the committee.
I'm happy to move.
Moved. Councillor Cameron. Yeah. Seconded Mayor John. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Well done. Well done, Kevin. Right. Let's hear what we're all about. So invite Joe really to lead this discussion around the Taupō District Water Services Committee and our role.
Not the right screen. Do you want me to start? Yeah. Kia ora tātou. So Joe Walton and myself, Sarah Leland, will jointly deliver the performance report today. So I can commence with just a really high-level introduction, I think, in terms of the 3 water services that we deliver and the team that support that. So we do have in-house delivery, as we've noted, for drinking water, stormwater and wastewater services, and our in-house team supports us with the strategic delivery, asset management. We're across the legislation and compliance, and also the operation of our 3 water services. So we operate the treatment plants in-house with for water services and wastewater, and then we have oversight of our contracted network management, which is currently delivered by Downer Contractor. And I just really want to take the opportunity today, we've got a few of the team here with us in person, our asset managers who are specialist engineers who really do a lot in the advice and direction that they provide us with asset management. So just note that we've got Tom Swindell's here, who's our asset manager water. Maybe just give a wave out there, Tom. We've got Mike Cordell, who's wastewater and SCADA asset manager. And then we've got Phil Burt behind me here. Just wave out as well, Phil, who is our asset manager stormwater. Online, we've also got Nicola Hancock, who's our compliance specialist, and Felissa Valentine, who's our asset information specialist.
Kia ora koutou, ko Joe Walton, tōku ingoa. Hi, he kai whakahaere hōtaka aho. I'm Joe Walton. I am the program manager who's been looking after the local water done well reforms for the last 2 and a bit years, and was quite involved in getting this committee established, so it's really nice to be here today on our first meeting. I am currently looking after the implementation of our water services delivery plan, and also working very closely with Kendall, who's sitting over there between Julie and Sarah, as we develop the long-term plan, of which the water services strategy is sort of the parallel cousin. We're sort of working to make sure we keep an eye on all the reforms as they're all happening and sort of overlap with each other. So that's the process that we'll be taking this committee through, trying to focus on the water-related activities, but also being mindful of the broader picture of how that fits in with Council's development of the long-term plan. Just thought it would be useful to give a bit of an overview of the timeline that we're sort of operating towards. As we know, there is a deluge of reforms coming through. So where we've come from, the 3 Waters reforms as they were, and we were all set to be part of Entity B pre-2023. The last 2 years has been a focus on understanding and working through the local water done well reforms, and that involved, a number of the councillors were involved here when we made the decision to keep our waters in-house, when we reviewed our delivery model and developed and then had accepted the water services delivery plan, which I'll touch on in a moment. We've also been kind of working through and starting to understand what it means to be in a regulated environment under the Commerce Commission. So what we've got ahead of us, the first hurdle we're aiming for is, as of 1st of July, to be set up for financial separation of water services. So we are internally establishing all the systems so that we can capture all of the costs and debt associated with water in particular. The reason we're needing that for June is that as of November next year, we'll need to put in our first annual report for waters separate. So we need to have it set up for the 26-27 year so that we're ready for that. Taumata Arawai touched on the community drinking water assessment. That was also mentioned that we need to have that completed by June also. By June next year, we'll have our first water services strategy, so that's the process that we're developing in tandem with the long-term plan. As you know, we are part of the Waikato Waters group in a minor position, not transferring our assets there but remaining involved with that. So we have made a commitment that we will review that opportunity as part of our development of our strategy. And the first Commerce Commission disclosures will be required by the middle of next year, so putting forward our asset management processes. Yep, I touched on November, so we'll have the first annual report by July 2028. That's where the absolute financial sustainability requirement is legislated to must be met, but we are already in that position, as was demonstrated through our water services delivery plan. And yeah, that's basically it. One thing I'll touch on that later. That's fine. So just to cover off, hopefully most, if not all of you, have had a chance to look at the water services delivery plan that's on our website. Just kind of wanted to remind you of a few key points that are in there, because it is quite a good snapshot of sort of where we're at and what's ahead of us as far as priorities and deliverables. So obviously we're staying with our in-house model, and it was accepted, but it does give a good snapshot of the current state of play. What are the major issues we need to consider? What are the risks, etc. The DIA will be monitoring our implementation of the water services delivery plan, and that is obviously one of the key objectives of this committee, also to just maintain oversight of how that's tracking. So I just kind of wanted to bring up those key milestones, and obviously this is in the paper, but kind of tick the first one, so that's great. Establishment of the Water Services Committee is happening today, so yay. Working towards the financial separation, as I had mentioned, that is well on track. And preparing for the Commerce Commission regulation. The final determination just came out a couple of weeks ago, so we're just kind of digesting that. The one positive is they did give us a little bit more of a transition time to make sure we've got all the boxes ticked for the asset management, all of the options, so that's good. We can kind of work through the priorities for that there. And the Waikato Waters Review. Yeah, so that's kind of an overview. This was sort of under the paper called Welcome to the Committee, just to kind of set the scene of the current context. So if there's anything anyone would like to ask about that, and then Sarah and I will get into the performance report.
Thanks, Jo. So I have a question, really, in terms of Commerce Commission, they're finalising their position. Have you had good contact with them over the last 6 months or not? Because I know from a Taupo-Kaingaroa perspective, they were keeping close tabs on what the Commerce Commission was up to. But I suppose my question is, how's your relationship with the Commerce Commission?
Yes, we have had a conversation with some contacts at the Commerce Commission recently, which was great, because we were really aware that kind of establishing that relationship will be really useful as we go forward and understand what's required. They've had a couple of webinars which we've been involved with, but yeah, we've got a few questions that we're getting as we start developing things, and we're quite keen to understand that how we're going to work through. There's a few hurdles in our system that might be actually challenging to comply with, so it's quite important for us to get an understanding of that quite soon before we get too far along the journey. So we're hoping to get some traction.
Because the way I see it, much what was raised by Councillor Campbell earlier is really aimed at the Commerce Commission, the economic regulation of how the plan's delivered and the financial implications of it will be administered or regulated by the Commerce Commission, not the Taupo-Kaingaroa. You've got quality and you've got economics, so that's probably a pretty important relationship and a challenging one to foster, I imagine. Any questions or clarification from anyone regarding the introduction to the committee? If not, we do have a recommendation, and I'll read it out, that the Taupō District Water Services Committee received the information provided to support members in their role for the 25-28 triennium. Can I have a mover for that?
So just before you do,
sorry.
With the feedback, just want to acknowledge Tony, Sarah, and Jo, and the staff here as well. But and I've been involved, should have said this at the introduction, right from the previous government's Three Waters, kind of been at the pointy end of this from an elected member's point of view. It has been a pleasure to work with the team to get us to this point. It's just put on the record acknowledging the extraordinary hard work and significant hurdles that the team has stepped over, Sarah and Joe in particular leading the charge. Just want to put on record my thanks to them for an extraordinary bit of hard work over a long period of time.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Very important to acknowledge what you've achieved. So just to move that recommendation, mover and a seconder. Yeah, moved Councillor Taylor, seconded Mayor John. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, moving on to the performance report.
I'll carry on. Just acknowledging the first meeting is a little awkward the way I've laid out the papers, just because I kind of wanted to set the scene, but then also give you an update of current progress. So there's a bit of a, which bit does it fit in? But yeah, so we've talked about the milestones for the water service. Oh, I was just going to mention the regulatory updates, and I've sort of touched on it already, but the Commerce Commission final disclosure came out, and another key important piece of information which also mentioned in the Taumatarawa update was those wastewater environmental performance standards have been finalised. So Mike, that's why he's working while sitting here, because he's trying to digest and understand all the implications that that's going to mean for us. So there'll definitely be some information coming to this committee regarding those, I'm sure, future dates. Yeah, so just as far as our milestones, that's kind of where we're up to. I did just want to, didn't particularly mention it in the paper, but I just wanted to make it clear to the committee just how the development of the water services strategy will sit as part of the kind of wider program for the council. So just, managing those separate but highly related and dependent pieces. So the development of the long-term plan, the water services strategy, the implementation of our plan, and separating financially. So those are just kind of all hanging together, of which I'm looking after it all. To you, Sarah.
Okay, so just jumping on now to the performance report, so page 8 of your attachment. So just looking there at our January results, you'll note there that we have one notification to Te Mata Arawai for risk to drinking water, which is for arsenic. And this is due to exceeding the arsenic limits at a number of our treatment plants. And it's related to naturally, I guess, highly occurring arsenic levels with geothermal activities. So as we... Sorry, just a sec. Sorry, I'm just trying to work out the sign language. Okay.
No.
It's fine. Yeah, so with geothermal activity, there is naturally occurring arsenic, and we heard that earlier in the presentation by Te Mata Arawai. So with the work that we're doing with upgrading our membrane treatment plants and bringing in, our treatment plants and bringing in that membrane treatment technology, we are addressing those arsenic levels. So recently, with the completion of the Kinloch water treatment plant, that one no longer has an arsenic issue, and the team are very actively underway with a number of membrane treatment plants, and you'll see that in the capital program. So we've got the Amori water treatment plant, which is currently in the commissioning phase. We've got Motuapa, which is well underway with construction, and then we've got Hātepe in the design phase. You'll also note there that we captured the moderate or significant resource consent non-compliances. So for the month of January, just note that we didn't have anything of significance there in terms of non-compliances.
Through the chair, just to make it clear, this does not apply to Turangi, does it? Because we are not surface water in Turangi, so the arsenic levels are not relevant down there, is that correct?
So all of our water supplies need to be compliant with arsenic. Those where there's already sufficient treatment in place will be managing the arsenic, and those which are yet to have arsenic, I guess sufficient treatment in place to deal with arsenic, are outlined in the report.
Whereabouts in the reports here?
Through the chair, just to add to that,
Yeah.
obviously we're talking about lake supplies.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously Turangi, I think what you're alluding to
That was
is
the
Turangi has a
point.
different source.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is why, so if anybody's listening and they're not hearing the word Turangi mentioned here, they're going to say, what about Turangi? Because it's a different water source. It's not a lake source. That was the point that I was getting to.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
Tony.
that. And obviously, as we
Yeah.
indicated earlier, we've got 16 water supplies around the district, all in different water takes.
And just in response to where that's captured, if you just see the trend there on the page, just in the first line there, it just notes in the smaller text where those arsenic test results are exceeded, which is Centennial Drive, Hatepe, Motuapa and Amori.
Sorry, can I just check what page we're on? I'm struggling to follow you in the report.
Sorry, that's page 8 in the attachments.
Oh, so 13.
Comes out different numbering.
Ah, okay.
On their version it's
Yep, through the chair, obviously, some of us are looking at diligent pages. So I'm assuming we're looking at page 13.
Thank you, Tony.
Through the chair, can I just ask a point of clarification, or two really. One is, well, arsenic sounds bad, and it probably is bad in high doses, I'm sure, but the threshold we're trying to keep below, if that's exceeded, well, the first question is, what sort of health issues is that linked with? And the second question is, well, Councillor Greenslade raised a good point about if Turangi has a different water supply, which arsenic is not a factor, I'm assuming. We're not just going and banging on the membrane treatment sort of thing there to cater for arsenic when it's not even there, are we?
Okay. So through the chair, I guess on the first question, I think that's probably in terms of arsenic impacts on health, I think that's probably outside of my lane to be able to comment on that. But I would note, and Tim mentioned it in his presentation earlier, that we are marginally above the value for arsenic, and it is actually, the MAV value is across a lifetime of drinking that water rather than instantaneous, I guess, consumption of that water. But yeah, I guess, a specialist would need to answer, how those arsenic levels may or may not affect you. And on the second question around membrane treatment, so we're not just putting that in to address arsenic, and Tim did cover that off at a high level earlier as well, that that's a technology which is needed. Well, there is UV treatment as well to address protozoa in the water. So the membrane treatment technology enables us to deliver on a number of requirements under the drinking water standards.
No, okay. I mean, I just on the back of that, I suppose. If Turangi has as wonderful water as Councillor Greenside claims, then shouldn't need a lot of treatment. Common sense would say that, I suppose, but also point out, well, we do, and this is the Minister of Health problem, well, causal problem, if you like. We do spend money adding fluoride to our water supply.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt this. We're not here to debate the regulations, and I'm not going to allow that as independent chair. The regulations are in place, and you have a duty of care to meet the regulations. You've applied to deliver the services in-house, and there's a delivery plan to do that. I think the standards are set, and like it or lump it, you are charged with meeting the standards. So we could debate this stuff for hours, but I don't think there's any point. I don't think it's our role. You have a team of staff that look at all the endeavours of the best way of treating things. Our role is to govern the implementation of the plan.
Well, should the chair just push back on that somewhat, in that I also hold that we have a duty of care to the health of constituents, and that's actually laid out in the Water Services Act, I believe, is that if we're adding stuff to water which might not be helping the health of constituents, then I hold that as our concern, and I would lump fluoride in that, because there are evidence of harm with that.
We'll agree to differ. But okay, we carry on with the presentation.
Oh, may I?
Oh, Councillor.
Through the chair. I understand we had some challenges. It might have been from memory around sourcing contractors or supplies for these filters for protozoa. Have we overcome those challenges, and are we on track now? Because I see we've got a few non-compliances.
I'll just take the opportunity. Tom's kindly come and joined us here at the table. He's our asset manager water and is into the detail of this and would be well placed to answer that. Welcome, Tom.
Yeah, thank you. I just thought I'd jump up. I can quickly answer Duncan's question around the supplies, and going back to kind of the Turangi situation. So we do have numerous suppliers, as you've heard, 16 across the district. We have surface water suppliers, we've got bore water suppliers, we've got the lake, we've got streams, we've got some springs. Turangi's a spring that comes, from the foothills of Pihanga, and there's no arsenic in it. Whareroa is some lakeside bores that sit on the edge of the lake. They're only 10 metres deep. There's no arsenic in them. They're amazing. Unfortunately, the lake has arsenic. Many other bores around the place have arsenic. At Hātepe, before my time, the team drilled multiple bores all along the lakefront and other areas. Unfortunately, they found heavy metals. They were looking for easy solutions that could avoid the arsenic. So we're not putting in fancy treatment systems where we don't need to, but it is difficult to find good source water, and sort of Taumata Arawai alluded to that earlier around your source water is kind of your first point. Motutere, we're kind of looking at potentially a bore there because we've got a wastewater monitoring bore which has no arsenic in it, so we're kind of working on that as a possible future option there. Just that, hopefully that kind of covers that a little bit, Duncan. We're not putting in treatment plants where we don't need to, and we've recently built 6 UV water treatment plants on our supplies where the water's really good quality and we don't need membranes. So we've kind of done much cheaper solutions there. Unfortunately, the arsenic kind of requires a next level treatment system. Councillor Cameron, in relation to the supply issues, doesn't ring a bell with me, apologies.
I could have been mistaken. I just recall that a lot of this was delayed. It might have been actually because we had issues with other things and it was affecting the program of work. So I just wanted to make sure we were on track with that, I guess, is more the question.
Maybe the only comment there is probably, Omori, Kinloch, Motuopa and Hātepe are 4 membrane plant sites. That has been a long project, multiple kind of delays in different areas there. The first 3 of those sites are now, really moving on quite quickly. The last one, Hātepe, we're still just working through the land. That's been quite a long process, with most of the land around Hātepe being Māori owned, a little bit of dock land, which we've ended up with a dock concession, and we're just working through the geotech side of that now, hopefully be building soon.
You want to carry on?
Thank you. Just high level, the rest of the performance report we are sharing information that already goes to council with the significant projects. So we do report those, the progress and where those are up to. But just to give the committee a bit fuller view of all of the work, we've just listed out all of the capital and or consent projects that are currently underway for the team, and just kind of grouping them. There's sort of some key themes of the main pieces of work we're doing. So those relate to consent renewals, network renewals. For stormwater, it's about improvement devices and flood mitigation. The wastewater is mostly relating to growth, level of service upgrades to just improve performance and or comply with the consent conditions, SCADA upgrades, and then as Tom was talking about, we have all of those upgrades that are coming to the end for full compliance with the drinking water standards, growth projects, resilience projects. So it's kind of the main theme of the work that the team is undertaking as far as capital. I think that's basically the end of the report, so happy to take any questions. And
thanks, Jo. It's certainly, reading through the plan, there's a significant body of work there. Capital work it's certainly not minor. It's going to be significant, and look forward to getting our teeth into the strategy and actually seeing the delivery plan live and in action. And I note in the last page, or page 22 on mine, just the risk register. I think this is going to be really useful to us as a committee, and really, as I see our role as governors, is making sure we're getting progress updates and good reporting. This is going to be a critical part, because just reading the fine print on that around the wastewater standards and the impact that has on land-based discharge. I mean, that's going to be substantial for your organisation. So I really like that type of reporting. I think it's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair. I mean, certainly this is our first committee, and we know that information will develop as we progress on this journey, and there is a lot coming as a team. So I certainly endorse that governance side of things and appropriate detail where appropriate. And certainly we know that we're looking at building those relationships ongoing with Tomato Arawai, for example, as well as ComCom. And we know that there's going to be a significant requirement from them on asset data. Are we spending revenue in the right places? Looking at our renewal policies, etc. So there's an awful lot of work to come back to this committee, so we can give you confidence that we're on the right pathway, and then challenges where we need to.
Councillor Campbell.
Oh yes. Look, through the chair. I realise we're about to wrap up. So it's a question for you, Chair. I'm questioning one of the purpose of this Water Service Committee. If we aren't being held to be here to question the regulations, or if what we put in the water is of benefit or even harm to constituents. And of course, the example I'm thinking of, if this Water Service Committee is not held as the forum to question the issue of fluoride, then I wonder what forum is.
I think that if in our standard committee's objective is clearly stated to provide strategic direction in relation to and governance oversight of Taupō District Council's water services. So I think that encompasses, I don't have a problem with asking pertinent questions in operational matters, as long as they're relevant to you as a governor and making your governance decisions. What I'm not keen on, and I'll make it quite clear, is the regulations are in place and we are here held to account to meet the regulations. We're in charge of overseeing the development of the budgets of this delivery plan. So I think as long as questions are pertinent to making those decisions, it's fine. But I don't think we need to, in my view, as your independent chair, we're not here to rehash the whole reason for being here, your council has, with public support, strong public mandate, delivering water services in-house. Part of DIA's approval is that you have an independent chair and that you have a separate committee, separate ring-fenced business around water. So I think it's really important we understand that we're here to develop a strategy, develop a budget, because to me, the council, we need to report to the full council to give them confidence of making a choice in 2 years' time whether they stay independent or they join a larger entity. And I think that's, to me, that's what I see my key role as chairing this, to keep us on track, to make sure we're working to the standing orders that this committee is founded on, and monitoring progress of all capital works, of all budget works, and all expenditure. And I think that's a really important role of a governor. But what I don't want to see develop is every meeting where we rehash the regulations and should we be doing this, that and the other. You can ask, to me, questions around any information you need to make your governance decisions. And I think that's the basic role of a governor.
Yeah, through the chair, I could just only respond with one thing, is that I hold us as governance responsible for, and this is quoted in the Water Services Act, the provision of safe drinking water.
Yep.
And that is the bottom line. And
your other waters too, of course, wastewater and stormwater.
Oh, yes, but we're just talking about drinking water. If we're only talking about this provision of safe drinking water, that is our responsibility. And
yep.
If some of the things we're asked to do are contrary to that, well, I think that's governance' role to address that.
Yep. Yeah, and quite happy for you to do so. Councillor Greenside.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two questions and they're completely different to each other. So I'll start off with the first one. Taumata talked to us about the private water schemes that they're going to be having to sign up by November 28. I suppose the question is a yes and no answer. We will have no monitoring role in those private water schemes. That's directly to do with them, is it? Yeah.
Yep, through the chair. I'll come back to that one, Councillor Greenside.
Yep.
That's my understanding. We've been working with Taumata Arawai and indicating to them some of these schemes or properties that we know of.
Yeah.
And obviously, as Joe mentioned, we're doing a review internally, but I don't believe that's our role to continue any further from there.
Right, okay, that's good, because there's a cost element involved in that, obviously, and if we don't have to, why would we? So that's the number one. And the second one is on page 16 of the diligent page, so I don't know what page it is for you. It talks about water growth projections, address high water usage throughout the district. Where did that information come from, and why would you make a comment like that, and what do you consider to be high water usage?
Is that under the metering project? Is that what we're talking about?
It's on the same page as the drinking water membrane plant upgrades. It's down the bottom of that, yeah. Water growth projects. Water growth projects. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, so within the long-term plan there is provisions for some water meters already. We do already have a number of water meters as well across the district. Obviously not on every home but or property, but yeah, certainly within the long-term plan there are provisions for more water meters, and that is a tool to, I guess, manage water growth, water use rather, and I guess balance that with investment in further infrastructure if that's needed to meet growing water demand. But it's something that certainly there'll be further information coming back to the committee on that.
I didn't really answer my question, Sarah, I'm sorry. I mean, it's a statement, address high water usage. Do we have a high water usage, or are you in the process of identifying that we've got high water usage? I mean, which is it? Have we got high water usage?
Through the chair, look, yes, we do in some areas.
We do?
We do. We do have high levels of water loss in some areas around our district. And, you know, water demand management is a tool that we want to use moving forward. And if you recall, in a previous LTP, we talked about how we're starting to look at universal volumetric water metering. And as Sarah just indicated, we will be talking around that as we move through LTP workshops on what some of those mechanisms and tools will be.
Okay, thanks, Tony. And I do remember that you saying that the high water usage was in Turangi, particularly where you've got a 50% water loss in the pipes. But the pipes are all being replaced at present, so presumably that's going to change sometime soon?
Through the chair, water loss particularly is on the private side.
Leaky pipes.
So us in council, are we perfect and the private people are not?
Through the chair, no such thing as perfection, unfortunately, but just striving for excellence. Thank you, Councillor Greenslade.
Okay, so that gives a clearer picture in that we'll be replacing our pipes, and because we've got meters in place, we'll then start to be able to identify the loss in the private parts, and we'll be able to address it that way. Okay, that's a clearer picture. Thank you.
Network management, I think it's called. A lot of, you know, around the country, it's not foreign, it's not particular to your council. Water loss is massive across New Zealand, and a lot of councils use meters to identify where the leaks are. But over time, with new infrastructure, as Tony mentioned, I imagine water metering will be part of the solution.
And certainly through the chair, we know there's going to be a lot more scrutiny on how council operates and manages its own network, hence why we've been investing in network zones, network meters, so we know exactly where the water is going. So there's a significant programme of works that's been taking place over there as well.
Thank you.
You said just a layman's question, really. Okay, water meters, I mean, if they're all there, if we could just snap our hands and they're all there and they cost nothing, that'd obviously be a good thing, I think. But just for the average household, how much does a water meter cost to connect onto an average household? Because I'm imagining that's roughly what everyone will have to fork out. Well, residential anyway.
Well, through the chair, I mean, certainly it would be a council cost to install water meters at the boundary, first and foremost. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that will come down to whatever contract rates we get as and when we get to that point.
Oh, I mean, are we talking $100, $1,000? Just a rough order figure would be.
I don't want to give you a number off the top of my head because otherwise I might be quite inaccurate. But it's not peanuts. Let's put it that way. Certainly would be a minimum of probably $1,200. And we've got rates for repairs and installing meter currently with our maintenance contractor. But yeah, we'll work through that as we go through the LTP.
Yeah, no, that's a good rough order cost. I imagine it would be, once we get to that point, I imagine it'll be debt funded, so we're not going to throw $1,200 onto everyone all at once. I mean, that's how it works, isn't it?
For the chair, I mean, we're talking capital works.
Yeah, so debt funded, yeah, that's all right.
Any further?
Can I ask my question?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Foreman, I'm still working out where the numbers are.
It's just a basic question. I just wanted to know if we can have, might just be for me, a map where all the major projects are, so I can work it out while I'm still trying to understand where these things are, because we haven't had our infrastructure tour. It's kind of hard to work out where all the activity is.
Through the chair, I'm sure we can put something like that together.
Okay, any other questions? If not, there's a recommendation there that that report on performance report be received. Would someone like to move that? Moved, Councillor Chapman. Seconder, Mayor John. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So that brings us to the end of our agenda. Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. I think everyone's passionate about water wherever you go in council circles, and I note there's a substantial body of work in front of Tony, you and your team, and I want to support as best I can from an independent view how that strategy is developed, how the budget is developed, so a future council is well placed to make the right decisions for the betterment of the community on where the services eventually lie, whether you maintain them in-house or join with a larger entity. I see that as one of my key roles, making sure we stay on track and make sure that what Tony's teams say they're going to do, we make sure they question to make sure that's happening. So thank you again for your welcome, and look forward to working with each and every one of you. So in closing, we'll close with the karakia.